Okay, time to get the weird flowing. You know, with a company as big as Disney, and with all of the time that they spend developing their characters, you would think that they would want to represent them the same across the world. Well, based on the title of this video, obviously not. In fact, some of the characters that you know very well have been completely changed depending on which country the movie's released in. Seriously, these are about to throw you for a loop. Here are 10 Disney characters remade in foreign countries. Number 10 is Remy the Rat. Pixar, which is owned by Disney, has released several classic animated films, and one of those was Ratatouille, the 8th film in the Pixar catalog. It follows Remy the Rat as he attempts to master cooking and become a great chef. But in 2007, another version of the character appeared in the Brazilian animated film Ratatouille. This infamous mockbuster was designed to capitalize on the popularity of Disney's animated rat. I'm talking about the less popular one, obviously, not the But unlike Ratatouille, Ratatouille takes place in Brazil rather than Paris, and follows the knockoff Remy fighting with a group of rats who hope to steal his famous recipes. The animation is really bad and has terrible lip syncing, and there's an English dub which wastes talented voice actors and makes the film even worse. Yeah, I'm sure Disney felt real threatened. Number 9 is Princess Merida. Another questionable remake of a Disney and Pixar production is the film known as Super K. Bizarrely, this is a case of a film being repackaged as a remake in order to take advantage of the popularity of Pixar's 2012 film Brave. Super K is actually an Indian film which has a suspiciously similar character to Brave's Princess Merida. Many people have suggested that though Super K was released just before Brave, that the studio responsible modeled its red-headed character Kiara on already released promotional material showing Brave's Princess Merida. When Super K was released in America, they then renamed the movie Kiara the Brave, even taking the Disney film's title. The movie was not exactly received well and was universally criticized. I think the funniest thing about this is that the title was Super K, as if they could get any less creative by the fact that they ripped something off and were just like, oh, just figure out a title and put it out. Super K? Okay, let's go. Number 8 is The Princess and the Frog. Oh god, I'm never trying to do a frog again. Disney's The Princess and the Frog tells of the timeless fairy tale of, well, The Princess and the Frog. It was released in 2009, and hot on its heels came the cheap remade version, The Frog Prince. This Brazilian production was made by Video Brinquedo, who had made a whole stream of Disney remakes over the last 2 decades. But here's the interesting thing, Disney can't really do a lot about it because they've adapted public domain fairy tales, and so Video Brinquedo can just claim that they did the exact same, even though the release dates are always very similar and the artwork is too. The Frog Prince has both the princess and the frog from the Disney version, but includes some bizarre sexual innuendos, which would make most people feel as if it was inappropriate for kids. But seriously, even if you're 5 years old, there's no mistaking this for the real thing. Number 7 is Carl Fredricksen. Disney and Pixar's 2009 animated film Up has a huge fan base. You know, that sweet story about an old grieving widower and a young boy going on an adventure to discover their place in the world, so of course somebody had to rip it off. In Disney's film, the old widower is Carl Fredricksen, who attaches balloons to his house in order to turn it into an airship to see the world. But in the 2009 ripoff, the coincidental example of parallel thinking, the film What's Up? Balloon to the Rescue replaces Carl with a stuffy old scientist who likewise floats his house around attached to balloons. Man, I'd like to attach some balloons to the people that made this film and just let them float. Sorry, come on Matt, you promised to be nice. Number 6 is Aladdin. Yo, seriously, this is one of my childhood favorites. You better not mess with the storyline. player. Disney's Aladdin was released back in 1992 to rave reviews. But following this, a German company called Dingo Pictures released its own version, complete with another take on Aladdin himself, and even Robin Williams' famous performance as the genie. Dingo Pictures avoided copyright issues by stating that their film was nothing to do with Disney's, and that it was based on the source material. But unlike Disney's Aladdin, this is not a whole new world that you'd like to visit. With lifeless animation and a strange technique where only the mouths of the characters move most of the time and little else, you certainly know that you're not in Disneyland when the genie appears and announces loudly, "Ich bin Genie!" Honestly, Robin Williams is probably spinning in his grave. You will pay respect to that original genie. Number 5 is Kung Fu Panda. Oh, another Brazilian remake. Great. In 2008, a Brazilian animation company released the film The Little Panda Fighter. It's a not-so-subtle remake of Kung Fu Panda and retells the story of Po, a giant panda who aspires to become a Kung Fu master. Skadoosh. In this instance, the giant panda's name is Pancada, and he works for a boxing club. But in a bizarre twist, he hopes one day to become a professional dancer, but is mistaken for a famous boxer. Critics went absolutely savage on this movie, destroying it, criticizing it mostly for plagiarism, and noting that the counterfeit Po did not have the same charm that Jack Black's Kung Fu Panda did. As with many of these copies, Little Panda Fighter has a much reduced budget, and you can tell just how reduced it must have been throughout the agonizing 50-minute runtime. I'm just still trying to be nice to these people, just starting to struggle. Number 4 is Pocahontas. Yet another Disney character who was remade in a foreign film is Pocahontas. That film is called The Adventures of Pocahontas, Indian Princess, and was released back in 1994. But interestingly, the Disney version was released a full year later, but some people believe that companies were able to get their versions out first because they didn't have the same production costs or time-consuming techniques, like, trying to make it quality. The film was directed by Japanese filmmakers Toshiyuki Hiruma and Takashi, and despite allegedly rushing the film out to beat the Disney production, the film has some good animation and is even remembered fondly by kids who watched it at the time. Unlike the other movies on this list, some reviews have even suggested that the characters are more likable than their Disney counterparts. Well, either way, the actual story of Pocahontas that this was based upon is kind of a nightmare. You might want to look it up. Childhood ruined. Number 3 is Mowgli. The Adventures of Mowgli is an animated series in Russia which retells the story of the Jungle Book. It ran from 1967 to 1971 and was later compiled into a feature-length cartoon. While both Disney's The Jungle Book and The Adventures of Mowgli are based on the original book by Rudyard Kipling, the Russian version is seen by many as a remake of the Disney production. Because both films are drawn from the same material, they follow the same story of a baby being brought up in the jungle by wolves and other animals called Mowgli. Surprisingly, the Russian version actually has a lot of merit to it, with some great animation and in some places being closer to the actual book than the Disney version. Unfortunately, the songs haven't been likewise reinterpreted. Let's be honest, you kind of want to hear the Russian bare necessities. It's just the Russian bare necessities, in Russian necessities need you. Number 2 is Simba. Who doesn't love The Lion King? If you don't, you're a monster. Well, it seems that someone in Japan loved the film so much that they had their own animated adventure starring a replica of Simba. The 46-minute direct-to-video animated film was released in 1994 and it was titled Leo the Lion, King of the Jungle. In it, Simba's counterpart, Leo the Lion, has become King of the Jungle, but isn't very good at doing the job. But just like at the end of Disney's Lion King, a young lion cub arrives on the scene helping Leo to understand what it means to be king. But one thing going for this film is that there's a lot less death and destruction than the Disney original, but that doesn't save the movie from being a poor remake of the Disney classic. It also doesn't have Timon and Pumbaa singing Hakuna Matata, which makes it instantly 300% worse. If you're hungry for a big piece of juicy meat, eat my buddy Pumbaa here, he's a juicy treat. Ah, he's a big pig, yum yum, you could be a big pig too, oi! And number 1 is WALL-E. WALL-E is a well-loved film from Pixar with an original science fiction tale to tell. It's pretty unique, so unique in fact that you'd assume that no one would ever try to remake it. Its story, its characters, whatever. But of course, you'd be wrong. The film Tiny Robots was released in 2008 and reimagines the title character WALL-E from the Disney and Pixar movie of the same name. The 45-minute Brazilian production follows a group of robots living on Earth, which is no longer inhabited by humans. In the robot cities of planet Earth, an evil robot, which looks suspiciously like a Darth Vader knockoff, has risen to power. WALL-E, or Tank as he's called in this version to avoid being sued, has to travel through the robot cities to stop the evil villain from taking over the planet. Trust me, I made it sound a lot better than it actually is. Well, there you go. What have we learned today, folks? Brazil likes to rip off a lot of movies, and they're almost never as good. Actually, the Brazilian ones are never as good, ever. The Russian one, maybe, but never Brazil. Okay, Brazil, lesson learned. So start making some original content. Okay, bye.